Well, they dusted it, didn't they?
All right, we'll call the January 8th, 2019 meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. I would like to welcome all of you in attendance and as we partake in Macon County's business tonight. Are there any announcements? Anything? Nope. Crickets? All right. Before we rise, we'll observe a moment of silence, and I'll ask Commissioner Gillespie to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment period. I don't have a sheet up here. Somebody signed up. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to address the board?
I'm April Moore,
She's an agenda item.
I believe you're on our agenda.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Anyone else like to address under public comment? If not, we'll move on to additions to the agenda. I know we have one item which is adding a Ross Dodge to potentially the Board of Health. We'll move that under appointments 13B. And then I would like to add maybe 11, new business 11G. As we start the new year, I just want to have just a quick discussion with you gentlemen about our liaison appointments. And anything else? Go ahead.
If we could, under reports and presentations, and be item 9B, our Social Services Director, Mr. Patrick Betancourt, is with us here tonight, and he's going to go over with us some of the impacts, potential impacts of the government shutdown with regards to the Department of Social Services.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Lori, Chester? Anything? Great. Well, if we can get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, a second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Reports and presentations. Fiscal year 2017-18 audit presentation by Carrie Dunlap with Martin Starnes and Associates. Welcome.
Should be on the desktop. Do you see it? Please look at it far right bottom maybe. Oh, they have open too.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to share some audit highlights with you. I'm Carrie Dunlap from Martin Starnes and Associates, and I work with Lori and the finance team on the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018. And I'm going to share a couple of highlights with you. The main focus of this presentation is the general fund. Feel free to interrupt me as I go along, or if you have questions at the end.
Is that on? Is your microphone?
Not too far away. Is that better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. I didn't know if they could or not.
Oh, okay. They might not want to hear me out. Okay, so just some audit highlights. There is an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the goal of the audit. That means there's no numbers in there that we believe are materially misstated, so that is the best audit opinion you can have. We really appreciate the cooperative staff. Their audit is a year-round list of requests that's never ending, so we're very appreciative of the staff that give us everything we need, that they go above and beyond to make sure that they answer all of our questions, and there are lots of them, so we really appreciate that. And next we're going to talk about your fund balance a little bit. The total fund balance this year was right at $28.7 million, which was an increase of almost $5 million over last year. The revenues actually exceeded expenditures by 5.4 million, but then when you back out any transfers to other funds, then that left the increase to 2.5 million. So that was a very substantial increase this year. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the fund balance. So this is measured by your assets plus any deferred outflows minus your liabilities and any deferred inflows to get your fund balance. And there are 5 different classifications of fund balance. You have your non-spendables, which are inventory and prepaids. Your restricted, which are any external laws and regulations. Any committed, which it would be any actions by the board. And then your assigned are internal constraints such as subsequent year's expenditures. And then your unassigned. So if you back all of these out, your unassigned fund balance was right at 23.4 million this year. Next, I'm going to talk about available fund balance, and this definition is defined by the LGC, and it takes your total fund balance, less your non-spendables, and less the stabilization by state statute, and this is the calculation they use to compare to other entities. And this is the calculation of available fund balance, so it's the 28.7 minus your inventory of 12,000 and prepaids of 252,000, and then you also back out your stabilization by state statute. This increased almost 2.6 million, or almost 2.7 million over last year. And this is a view of your available fund balance as a percent of expenditures and transfers out. And this calculation is also used by the LGC to give you an estimate of how you compare to other entities. And their minimum required is 8%, which gives you a month of expenditures to, you could survive for a month at 8%, which the county currently has about 6.5 months. So that's how you would fare if something really bad happened. That's how much available fund balance you have. Next, I'm going to talk about the general fund summary. So your revenues decreased less than 1% this year, and expenditures increased less than 1% this year. So it was very comparable over the prior year. And the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about your top 3 revenues. So the bulk of your revenues come from your ad valorem taxes, and that's about 56%. Then you also have your restricted intergovernmental, which is 17%, and your local option sales tax of 16%. And those those 3 combined make up 89% of your revenues, and that's about 45 million of your 50.5 million in total revenues. And the next 3 slides will show you a comparison of the amounts over the prior year. So your ad valorem taxes decreased very, very slightly, about $2,000 this year. So it was about 28.4 million. The most significant decrease was seen in restricted intergovernmental, so that went down to 8.8 million this year, and that was due to the daycare subsidy payments. They're being paid directly by the state, and they're no longer passing through the county. So you'll also see this reflected in the decrease in your human service expenditures as well in the next couple of slides. The local option sales tax, there was an increase of about 429,000 or 5.7%, so that was a good increase this year. Next, we'll look at your top 3 expenditures, and I know I'm going through lots of numbers, so if I'm going too fast, just slow me down. But your public safety, human services, and education make up 73% of your total expenditures. The total expenditures, those 3 combined make up 33 million, and your total expenditures were right at 45 million. So the public safety expenditures over the prior year did increase about 730,000 or 5.7%. And this was due to some new vehicles in the sheriff department, as well as emergency management. They received some funds related to the wildfires, so those expenditures were spent here. There were some salary and benefit increases as well. And then human services, this is, again, as I mentioned, that daycare expenditure, that it also decreased here, so it decreased to almost 9 million, and that was a $1 million decrease, or 8.7% over prior year. The other top expenditure is your education, and that increased by 156,000 or 1.8% over last year. So it's a little under 9 million. The next slide I have is a brief overview of the enterprise fund or solid waste fund. And this one is going to look a little bit odd compared to last year. Your cash went was pretty much the same over last year at 12.6 million. Your GAAP and your cash basis net income were both right at 500,000, a little over. And then your cash flows from operations actually increased to 1.7 million. And that was due to less cash paid out for goods this year. But then the unrestricted net position, the reason that went from 1.9 down to $279,000 deficit was because of the new GASB standard 75 that was implemented this year, and that's for other post-employment benefits. So in the past, you didn't have to record that full liability, but the GASB standard this year caused us to have to put the full liability on the books, so that created a deficit in the enterprise fund. If you have any more questions on that, I can go into more detail, but that's what happened here. And that was seen across enterprise funds with all other counties that are in the state this year due to that GASB 75 adjustment. That's specifically the net position for solid waste fund decreased by 1.9 because of those other post-employment benefits. And then the last two slides I have for you are related to compliance. So there were a lot of compliance changes that took place this year. The direct benefit program expenditures are no longer reported on the schedule of federal expenditures of state awards. So the way that impacts our testing, we have to look at a threshold to see what programs are major. And in the past, with those direct benefits on there, the threshold was over $1 million. This year, without those direct benefits, the threshold is down to $750,000. So any program that has more than that is now required to be tested, and we also still have to have a percentage of coverage as well. So that was a big change this year, and on the next slide I'll show you the change of that. But also the Office of the State Auditor required agreed upon procedures to be done for Medicaid. So we had to do that as a separate engagement to test eligibility. That was just another additional thing that they implemented this year, and I know for fiscal year 19, they are going to require these agreed upon procedures for both Medicaid and TANF. So hopefully TANF at Macon County, I don't think it's a large dollar, so it shouldn't be as expensive.
Can you say that one more time?
Mm-hmm. Next year, the Office of the State Auditor is going to require those agreed upon procedures for the Medicaid program as well as TANF. So the Medicaid, that'll be the same that we did this year, but they're also going to require TANF to be tested next year. And it will be it's completely up to them. They design the procedures and the population, so they tell us what we have to test.
Another nightmare.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they have that ability to give that to us. So, but as soon as we know more information on that, we'll share it with our counties. So, and then back to the direct benefit programs. So, in the prior 2 years, the major programs, there was 2 in 2016 and 3 in 2017. And in 2018, we had to test 7 major programs. So that was a significant increase. It more than doubled. We didn't do that just because we wanted to. We had to because of the uniform guidance rules. We had to analyze, high risk, low risk, type A, type B. There's all kinds of factors that factor into this. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that your final numbers on your schedule of federal and state awards, you have to test 40% of your state expenditures and 40% of federal. So at the end of the day, we had to test 7 programs. And luckily, DSS and finance both were more than helpful to get all this tested. We do see that trend continuing in the following years. There's just no way around that 40% coverage without the direct benefits now. So that's just something that we're going to have to live with. And luckily, at least we got through it this year. So next year it'll be a little bit more smooth. But I just want to share that with you guys because I know Lori sees us more and DSS sees us a lot more. So that's kind of the reason we're not here. So, there's a lot of increased audit hours that we've felt across all of our counties and municipalities. So if you have any other questions on that, just feel free to reach out to me or Lori. And that is all I have for you guys, unless you want to go back to your slides or you have any questions for me. And I will also mention that in your audit report, the management discussion and analysis, that's a great place to just, if you're going to read something in the audit report, read that. And it also mentions your fiscal year 19 budget highlights, so any revenues, expenditures coming up, that'd be a good place for you to know what's going to be coming in next year. Which I guess we're almost halfway through at this point. But
You understand the TANF stuff is coming down the pipe?
means we're gonna be seeing Martin Stone's a lot more. You're gonna email a copy of the PowerPoint?
I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it.
So I can provide it tomorrow, yeah.
Okay, good.
And if you have any questions when you're reading that or the audit report, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Thanks.
Drive safely.
All right, Patrick, you're up. Update on government shutdown.
Just give you a quick report. Thank you for having me. Just want to give you a little bit of background on where we've been in the past with regards to government shutdowns and where we are currently. I'll go ahead and give you the punchline now, and that is that because we've already received partial funding for this federal fiscal year, we don't anticipate any changes to our ability to provide services, provided that this shutdown ends relatively soon. I'm sure we're all hoping that that's the case. Just as some background, there's been 4 true shutdowns. There were a shutdown of 26 days back in fiscal year 95, 96 under the Clinton administration. There was a shutdown for 16 days at the beginning of federal fiscal year 2013. It's probably the one that we remember the most because that's the one that caused us to do a little bit of hoop jumping. And then, of course, this one being so far the second longest that we've had. The challenge with the 2013 government shutdown was that it forced states and municipalities to make those contingency plans because it occurred at the beginning of a federal fiscal year, October 1st and through the 16th, before any of the federal funding had found its way down to the states and jurisdictions. So in that case, in the 2013 shutdown, states were forced to sort of front some of the money for some of those grant formula programs such as TANF that Ms. Dunlap spoke about, without any assurances, at least at that time, that there would be any reimbursement retroactive from the federal government. You'll remember that federal funding was in fact retroactively reimbursed following the shutdown resolution. But because of the uncertainty at that time, Macon County Department of Social Services developed a shutdown crisis management plan that addressed the impact and planned for contingencies of the shutdown in 2 specific areas, personnel and programs. That plan was pretty well varied based on the program area because at that time we had received some funding, or we hadn't received the funding, but there was some assurances that some core programs would be federally funded despite the shutdown, those being SNAP, which is our what you know as our food stamp program. At that time, child support enforcement was assured that it would receive funding, and Medicaid was assured that it would receive funding. Other services that required protection issues, if you think about adult and child protective services back in 2013, there was no assurance that federal funding would come through those. So those became what we refer to as unfunded mandates at the time, because there's a North Carolina law that says specifically we have to provide those services 24/7, 365. It became the county's responsibility to figure out basically how those services would be delivered with the loss of federal revenues. That was a particularly painful time for us, and we certainly don't want to revisit that time. But we did develop a plan to address that. Moving forward to this particular shutdown, we've pulled that plan out, we've dusted it off, we've begun reviewing it. As I mentioned at the beginning, because we've already received funding through February for most of our programs, including TANF and SNAP, or food stamps, we're okay through February. Child care subsidies has received funding through March. So we likely, if this were to continue, we likely wouldn't feel any kind of an impact until sometime March or April, since we bill retroactively. We have begun reviewing, as I mentioned, we've begun reviewing that plan, making changes where we need to. Should this continue, that plan will become the basis for what decisions we'll make moving forward. Obviously, those kinds of decisions will be made in consultation with information from U.S. DHHS, North Carolina DHHS, Office of Budget Management, as well as the State Office of Management and Budget, and of course with this commission, in consultation with this commission. So fingers crossed, this shutdown ends sooner rather than later. However, we do have some contingencies that we can work with if we need to make those kinds of difficult decisions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to new business, updated comprehensive plan. Mr. Joe Dill, Chairman of the Macon County Planning Board. Looks like you have several other members here with you tonight as well.
We do. I believe we've got all but 3 of our current planning board members here tonight. And if I could, to start off with, I would like to say I've been wanting to get up here and do this for quite some time. It seems like this has been a daunting task that we've undertaken, and for a little over 3 years, this is a project that we've been working on. I know y'all have tasked us with a couple of other priorities in the meantime that we've worked on and come back to it, but our current and former planning board members and subcommittee members have worked diligently to produce the draft that we have for y'all tonight. And if I could take the liberty for just a second to name off all the people that worked on those committees.
Sure.
And the planning board members that have rotated off. So myself, Ben Lassiter, Betty Waldroop, Glenn Hedden, Evan Harrell, Andrew Bowen, John Sherrill, Bill Futrell, Aaron Garrett, Kathy Tinsley, Carol Poindexter, Justin Setzer, Tommy Potts, Chris Hanners, and Rick Trevathan have been the planning board members who have worked on this. Of course, Jack Morgan, Joe Allen, and Tina Wiggins in the planning department. And our subcommittee members, Warren Cade, Ben West, Kim Angel, Curtis Dowdle, Justin Moffitt, Jim Bruckner, Tommy Jenkins, Bobby Cuppers, Chris Baldwin, Rhonda Blanton, Chuck Sutton, Brittany Lofthouse, Lamar Sprinkle, Susan Irvin, Terry Bell, Seth Adams, Susie McCoy, and Stephanie Lassiter. And that's been a lot of folks in the community that have gave their input, and we've appreciated them, as well as our 2 liaisons from the board, Commissioner Shields and Commissioner Gillespie, over this time. And at this time, on behalf of the Macon County Planning Board, I submit the comprehensive plan for y'all's consideration. And if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer any. And if throughout the review of it, any changes that need to be made, we'll be glad to work on those.
Sure.
How many pages? Was it 100?
101 pages. And we have cut that down from, I believe, 300 that originally come in. So we have put in a lot of time and effort to make it as concise as possible, but still be comprehensive.
Joe, I haven't had a chance to. I'm probably literally 30, 40 pages in. Are there any significant changes off the top of your head?
That's a good question. We've probably, when we first started, we've had and updated a lot of different things. Things have changed, such as South Macon
Sure.
School, some of those projects. I know there's some projects coming up with transportation. Maybe Jack and Joe, they're in the trenches more so than we are as the planning board to keep us up to date on some of that. So I'll ask for any assistance if there's anything there that big item that I am missing.
You're doing a good job.
Our county manager, I think, was fairly instrumental in the original one. Derek, have you had a chance to review it yet?
Not yet.
Let's see how many things have had to correct for you.
No, but give me some good some good bedtime reading.
Public access to is online only? Public,
yet.
I'm not for certain on that. I believe it's just went to y'all.
okay, go to us
Just a
first.
draft.
It's just a draft.
Yeah, I mean, is there public access to the draft though? I mean, or
Yeah, we can certainly put that online.
should it be? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that'll be online.
yes.
It doesn't help me any, but
Thank y'all. I presume that you're going to be looking for a new task, some new work.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll discuss that, so.
I appreciate y'all's time.
Can we take just a
Thank you,
minute
Joe.
to recognize those members of the planning board that's here? If you'll stand up, we'd certainly like to recognize all those that put in so many hours on this project. So if you'd stand up, we'd like to take just a minute to recognize you all. Thankless job, Joe.
Just a couple of comments, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Sure. This, working through this plan is one of the most time-consuming projects that I'm aware of that the planning board is ever involved in. And it's probably the most fun as well. So, you know, I'd just like to say thank you for all the time and effort that y'all put into it. I think one of the key things with this version of the plan is I think this board has worked towards trying to consolidate and make ordinances as concise as possible. And I think this plan reflects that. It's very concise, it's very direct, it has the information in it that we need, hopefully in a format that can easily be found. So I think they've done a lot of work that is going to be for the betterment of the citizens of Macon County, and we owe our gratitude for that. Thank you.
Thank y'all. I've used this frequently in several speeches in the past, but it's like Alice in Wonderland. You really can't go anywhere without a plan. And I'm looking forward to delving into this over the next month before our next meeting, so we can hopefully pass it. But I do appreciate y'all's efforts, and I can't wait to see. And hopefully there won't be any major questions. Hopefully we can just roll right through it. But Jack, I'm sure we'll be in touch if anything arises. We definitely appreciate what y'all have done. No doubt about it. A lot of
Thank you
time.
so much.
Y'all are welcome to head out, or you're welcome to stay and hang out with us.
Oh. Carol, it's not over. All ready, Betty?
All right, item.
You got a copy for that?
I do.
We'll all get a copy, right, of that. And the plan that Larry presented.
Yeah. All right, item 11B, School Resource Officer Grant. Mr. County Manager and Sheriff Robert Holland.
Got the sheriff here, I'll invite him to come on up.
Okay. Call Lori up here in a second.
You got it.
As you all know, we've always fought to put officers in our schools, and all of you have agreed to ask me many years back several times to continue to look for ways to get monies, grants to be able to do that. And so I'm proud to say that in a partnership between us and the school system, we've been awarded 2 grants, or a grant for 2 SROs. It's 50% of the funds. The good thing about it is, as long as the school system and us do the proper documentation that we're expected to do, we'll get the same funds the following year as well. So we can always say it's for 1 year, but the good thing about it is we'll get it the following year too, as long as we do what we're supposed to do. And so we're asking that the county commissioners approve us that opportunity to accept those funds and be able to utilize that. The 2 schools, the two schools that will have covered then full-time is South Macon, which right now we have a temporary SRO that's working there, and then also our Macon Early College and SEC campus. The other SRO will be providing the security for and the services that an SRO does for those two schools combined, because they're right on the same property.
So these will be two new positions, okay.
Correct.
Is there a SRO at South Macon now?
There is temporarily, and that's who will be there.
Okay.
Sheriff, is there a grant agreement that needs to be approved?
I believe the school has done that.
The money
with the
goes to
board.
the school. The school applied and it goes to them, just like the Nantahala SRO. And then we just have to request the funds from the school and they send them to us.
It's the same grant that we did before for the Nantahala.
I don't think we actually had a grant agreement because it kind of comes through the public school fund, kind of their funding allotment.
That grant was only supposed to be for 2 years, and if you remember, we got it for 4, and then 5, and then it ran out, and then they had another process to apply for this new grants, and that's what we applied for.
Now, the way that was presented at the liaison, Roy, you and the sheriff will probably remember that even though nothing's guaranteed when you're dealing with a grant, that if everything was done like it's supposed to be done, that they didn't see no reason that this grant would not be perpetual. Is that the way you understood it, Lori?
I don't think I was involved in that meeting.
Well, we were, so that's, but
I don't
that's
recall,
what,
but
you know, a grant's a grant, you don't
Yeah.
ever, from year to year, but they
just like
seem.
Nantahala, I thought it was a continual thing, but it stopped
Mhm.
after last budget year. We don't get it any longer.
So we don't know, I mean, you'll never know, but that's what,
We got it for 5 years.
is that the way you understood it, Sheriff,
We were
that
only
they,
supposed to get it for 2,
yeah,
and we ended up getting it for 5.
but you understood that even after that, that it would, that this grant for SROs especially was going to continue.
Correct.
That's what we were led to believe in.
Correct.
We don't, nothing's guaranteed, we know that.
And things change in Raleigh.
Yeah,
So how much
And,
is the grant for?
This is through the Department of Public Instruction. That's where the funds
Yeah.
came from, that the school system was able to apply for. I know Jackson County applied as well, and I think they got 3 positions, and the county commissioners are giving them another 3, so they're getting 6 SROs this year to fill all their schools like we are.
How much is the grant for?
Well, we applied for 56,000, and actually we're awarded 66,000.
So we're getting 66,000 per year. And those 2 positions are costing us how much?
Lori has those numbers.
About 110,000 for salaries and benefits
Each or together?
and about 2,800 for training.
I'm sorry, what?
About $2,800 for training.
2,800 in training and 110,000.
Yeah, and I'm just rounding here.
Is the
but-
2,800 reoccurring every year? Do we have to
I
train
don't know,
every
do you
year?
have to train them
Yes.
year over year?
Every year our in-service and our updates.
So it's $112,800.
so the total request is what, 60?
The grant's 66,667. However, I didn't know the Nantahala was going away. So we budgeted 39,722. So we're actually only gaining, I think it's about $26,000 of revenue. So that kind of puts us in a little bit of a quandary, but we're already halfway through the year. So if he would fill these positions with the, the most recent payroll, you're looking at half a year. So between what it would cost for half a year, we would still need $30,807 to make it work. And the county manager, if you want to chime in of our possibilities of where to take those funds.
Well, and it's something that, this will be operating funds, so next year, while this is half a year, we'll pick up the full amount moving forward, or the full amount of our match moving forward in the fiscal year 1920. As far as this fiscal year is concerned, to make this, we could look to fund balance. If you don't want to look to fund balance, we could look to fund balance with the intent of getting us through the remainder of this year to be able to get to next year where we can work it into the operating budget paid for by operating funds. Second option is we have budgeted some funds in a courthouse security line item for staffing as per the recommendations. Whenever they come out, what might come from the courthouse security committee. That has since we have begun conducting the space needs analysis, and this amount of funds that were budgeted here for courthouse security are in the amount of about $55,881, and that was for 2 officers half a year here at courthouse to enhance courthouse security. But as we have conducted the space needs analysis and the courthouse security committee has kept working, we're still waiting on some recommendations to come out of that, and we're still waiting for the recommendations of the space needs analysis as well. So if the sheriff would be comfortable with it, we could look to those funds. That would keep us from having to go to fund balance, with the understanding that whenever we get to some final recommendations on the courthouse security, undoubtedly there will be recommendations in there that require or that are suggesting us to provide additional staffing for new security measures.
When do you expect that report back from them?
Well, now that the space needs analysis folks have came in and started conducting that study, we want them to have the opportunity to go through and provide their recommendations. So we'll get those recommendations from that architectural firm that has specialized in courthouse security projects previously. And right now, the timeline on that space needs analysis for the completed project is 6 to 8 months. So that will put us into the next fiscal year before those recommendations come out.
How many SROs are on staff now?
We have, I'm glad you asked me, I'm glad I wrote that down. We have 9 current full-time SROs.
Was it 9 full-time?
We got 1 temporary SRO.
Temp meaning?
Means that it's being, I have somebody that's a full-time SRO through our agency that's in a different unit, but he's there. He's covering that school. We can't have a full-time position there and apply for this grant.
So this person's at South Macon?
Correct.
Okay.
And because we had some incidents that took place, I wasn't comfortable waiting to put somebody at South Macon. And so I have somebody that's gone to school, DLET certified, North Carolina law enforcement, and gone to SRO school. And I'm utilizing him out of another position in my department temporarily until we can get the funding.
So that's the only school that,
SCC and the early college.
I mean, your standard K-12 or
Correct.
one, whatever.
All of them are, I've got them all covered.
You got 2 at Franklin High?
2 at Franklin High School. And that's thanks to Gary Shields, because we only had 1. And Gary Shields is one of those principals that really fought to have a second one before he left. And we were able to get a second position, because you cannot work Franklin High School alone.
What is the plan? I mean, I know when you're sitting around talking or formulating plans, what is the plan from the Sheriff's Department on?
Our goal has always been, since day one, before I was even a sheriff and was just the person that hired the first 2 SROs through a grant, is to have an SRO in all of our schools. And we've worked really hard to try to get that. And we're there. This is an opportunity for us to do that. It's not 100% guaranteed to prevent, a tragedy. But the thing about an SRO, they do far more than just work security at a school. They're involved with the teachers, they're involved with the students. We've had over, I don't know the exact number, I will round it off, it's no less than 4,000 contact between our school resource officers in the last fiscal year for the SROs in our school system with students, faculty, where they've been able to document whether it's counseling with a student, counseling with a teacher about a certain situation, or a problem they're having at home, or working with another outside agency to provide services to those kids in our schools. So there's a huge amount of time that the officers spend within the school system working with those kids and faculty.
Thank you.
And of course, we don't supply the SRO at Highlands, but you all supply the funds to Highlands, and so that's in the city limits of Highlands. And the police chief was the very first SRO that I ever hired at Franklin High School. And so when he became chief, he really fought to have the SRO under his department, and he has that, which is a good thing.
But David Adams is not willing to do that at Franklin High School. No.
No, David. It's not our police chief. Our police chief was very supportive of this.
Good guy. Yep.
Very supportive.
Lori,
Love him.
we need 30,870.
30,807.
807 to finish this year.
Right.
But this one officer is already in the budget that's at South Macon now.
No, he's not in the budget as an SRO. He's in another position within
But
Sheriff's
he's
Department.
he's in the sheriff's budget.
But not as an SRO, yeah. Because basically I guess you're short in one area
I'm
to
short
cover
in my
this.
jail. He's a certified law enforcement officer / detention officer / SRO.
In other words, you just basically robbed him from one place to put him in.
Temporarily.
For an SRO, we got to have one.
It's on me to keep my schools safe, and people were upset that we didn't have one there after we had an incident down there. And my goal was to keep that school safe and to keep people from coming in and coming down on you guys for us not having somebody there. So I made sure somebody was there. I took care of that for 5 months now.
But we have improved access security, right, at most buildings.
The school system and us are working hard at doing that, absolutely.
But if you sit and watch the video, Robbie, that we've watched many times from Union Academy, there's no question.
Oh, absolutely.
That answers every question.
Absolutely. I wish I would have actually brought that for y'all to see.
That answers every question.
He actually made it into the school door before the door could shut. The principal ran back in, and this 300-pound guy, we still don't know why he did what he did.
Was he a student or?
No, he's an adult male with mental problems, and was able to get into the school, and he attacked the principal and attacked my officer, and they had tased him, and 3 officers took him down. Pending case.
Sheriff, how do you use the, just out of curiosity, how do you use the SROs when the schools are down?
I'm really glad you asked that, because that's been a question that former commissioners have really questioned what they do. And thank God we have SROs, because during the summertime, everybody knows that our population rises.
Absolutely.
During the Christmas holidays, SROs aren't in school. They're able to fill in other spots. We had 2 officers that were injured here during the Christmas holidays, and they were able to fill in on those spots. In the summertime is when the SROs aren't allowed to go to training as much as they are in the summer, because if they go in the school year, I have to find another officer to take their place.
Yep.
So we try not to let them go to training during school. And so they do a lot of their training during the summertime. Also, I've got 75 other employees that like to take their vacations. And so in the summertime, most of the employees take vacations, and so SROs can fill in. And our job is a little different than most places. A lot of times you can take that and have a void and it's okay. But us, just like the dispatchers, you have to have somebody sitting at the desk. You have to have patrol officers. And so the SROs are able to fill in those different spots.
Sure.
And nowadays, you're only out of school for what, 6 weeks, the schools? And then most of the schools aren't empty all summer.
You know, I was about to say, I see the guy in Highlands, he's through that school virtually every day
Yeah.
in the summertime.
Yeah, and then we have the same thing.
Mhm.
So they stay really busy, and I'm glad you asked that because somebody else may have been wondering, because it always gets asked.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we fund the amount determined by the finance director to fund the SRO program to match the grant as determined at 30, I forget the exact amount, 30,000. whatever.
30,807.
And that money may come out of fund balance. That money to be removed from fund balance.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Shields. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Sheriff Allen, for
Thank you,
what
Sheriff.
do for the schools.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're doing.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Item 11C, discussion concerning industrial park soccer field concession stand. Mr. Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll look in front of you, I've provided you with a printout of the industrial park property that we'll be discussing here. This originated sometime back with SEC, and Commissioner Gillespie can chime in. You know, as he was involved in bringing this to my attention. Basically, the piece of property you see here, PIN number 65745339994, that belongs to Southwestern Community College at the industrial park. That piece of property extends about halfway into the soccer field there, northward. If you look, it makes a little, comes to a point there. What SEC is requesting from us, and this all comes back to, this came at the advice given to SEC by their legal counsel. For liability purposes, you know, the county uses these soccer events that use this concession stand, and essentially the attorney for SEC wanted to limit SEC's liability. So SEC was originally wanting to parcel this piece of property that, if you'll just follow that road line, that orange road line that runs from west to east there, down the road, they were wanting to parcel it there and give us the piece of property that contains the concession stand. After Chester did some research, it turns out that they can't give it to us due to general statutes and limitations that are placed on SEC and this piece of property. So they can lease it to us to limit their liability, and you know, the county would be in a lease agreement with them, specifying terms and conditions as we see fit and negotiate during this process. But prior to that, we need something, if it be the pleasure of the board to go that direction, we would need something that parceled this piece of property out. So we would need a survey. I've got a quote to do this survey from Sprinkle Surveying, $1,250. That will essentially sever or divide that property there and give us something that we can have a map of and draw a deed or draw a lease agreement from once that is in place.
Do they not already have a survey?
No, they don't have a survey.
It's just a drawing?
They don't have a survey that would be doing what we need to do with this piece of property. We did find the old subdivision survey that didn't get us where we needed to go.
Okay.
So we've got to just find the corners and draw a line. So with that request, and if the board deems it appropriate to move forward doing this, I would suggest that we make a motion to appropriate the $1,250 needed to conduct this survey from the contingency fund, and allow, once that is completed, allow Chester to use that and draw us up a lease agreement that would be satisfactory to both parties.
I think what Mr. Manager said earlier is a key component. The Southwestern identified this property as being used by the county and was excited to give that property to the county. So the Southwestern is not wanting to cause any hardship to the county They actually want to just give the property to the county uses it, the county needs it, so let's just give it to the county. But sometimes things don't always work out to be as easy as they should be. So that's why the thought was to have a lease agreement, just so there would be something in writing in the event that needed to be.
Chester, is it feasible to make this a very long-term lease so it doesn't have to be renewed every year? Can it be a 10 or a 20 year or longer?
Yeah, I think it could be.
Would that be satisfactory or Southwestern to do it 20 year, 20, whatever it might be?
I think what we might do is just propose
Or never
this
ending?
board
Yeah.
would like, and then we can, then at that point in time, if they need to dial it back or increase it, then they certainly can recommend
Okay.
that.
All right. Entertain a
Mr. Chairman,
motion.
with that, I would make a motion that we appropriate the funds out of fund balance to contingency to have the survey done.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, a second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Derek.
Yes, sir.
All right, item 11D, resolution and lease agreement with the Gem and Mineral Society. Mr. Attorney.
Gentlemen, the resolution or proposed resolution and lease is part of your agenda package. It would be a one-year lease with the understanding that the parties would revisit this at some time prior to the end of this 1 year, with the understanding it may be for a longer period the next time. Got information that we needed a new lease with them within sufficient time to do the publication required by statute in order to do a lease longer than 1 year this evening, but there does need to be a lease in place.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we that we accept the lease prepared, and we do know that we have spoken with the Gem and Mineral folks, and they're good with that. So these are very good tenants, bring a lot of folks to Macon County. So
And the resolution.
And the resolution.
All right, we have a motion for the resolution and lease agreement by Commissioner Bill.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 11E, occupancy tax penalty waiver from Franklin Home Store. Mr. Attorney.
Yes, gentlemen, the board, Franklin Home Store, Ms. April Moore, they have been paying occupancy taxes here in Macon County in connection with the business that they do here. There have been some penalties imposed due to, I think, failure to file and to pay timely. And so Ms. Moore is here this evening. I think she has some extenuating circumstances that she would like to raise with this board, and I wanted to bring to the board's attention that under the occupancy tax local bill that authorizes that, the Board of Commissioners is specifically authorized by that local act. It says the Board of Commissioners may, for good cause shown, compromise or forgive the penalties imposed by this subsection. Now, Lori Hall is the administrator of this occupancy tax, and Ms. Moore provided to her office a memo, if you will, of the reasoning that she gave in order to support some relief from the penalties which have been imposed. I suggested to Lori that she provide to each of you a copy of that communication, and I would encourage each of you to take just a moment at this time, if you've not already done so, to review it, and then afford Ms. April Moore, who is here this evening, the opportunity to address the board further or answer whatever questions that the board might have.
Thank you, Chester. Before we hear from Ms. Moore, Lori, can you just give us a quick update on what's owed, how much is owed, and current penalties being?
Sure. Yeah, the penalties that are in question total $5,158.43. And that is broken down between our legislation imposes a $10 per day penalty. So that amounts $4,340. And then there's
So that's
5% interest once
400 days.
Well, it's multiple months. It's
Okay.
May, June, July, August, September. And then I think might have been, there was a carryover from a previous month.
There are returns required to
Monthly.
be filed each month.
Each month,
And
right.
each day, one of those returns is late filed, there's a $10
per
per day
So
penalty.
there's roughly
And a 5% penalty in addition to that.
Right.
That's
I'm
not
making
what Macon County came up with, that's what the legislature in Raleigh came up with at the time they passed this bill.
Okay.
But the legislature did, as I said, indicate that the board commissioners may, for good cause shown, compromise or forgive the penalties imposed by this
So
subsection.
if there was zero penalty, zero interest, zero anything, what's the total amount owed?
That's the good thing
Well, she's
here.
paid
The
her
taxpayer has paid the taxes.
Yes.
We're
So
only
it's
talking
paid
about
up, it's just the penalties
The
now?
penalty, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
And what I was
Do
going
we
on
have
to
the authority
say,
to waive the penalty, Chester?
In this particular situation under
do.
this, you do. But newsflash, on ad valorem taxes,
You don't.
absolutely not, with the exception of 4 very, very minor provisions that you should consult with either Richard Leitner or myself before you release or waive.
And this is,
Here you have much broader discretion. In fact, basically all you have to do is find good cause shown if you're inclined to either A, compromise, in other words, reduce some portion, or to excuse. I will tell you if that decision, if you should make a decision to compromise or excuse for good cause shown, if you find good cause based on what is presented to you, that's a decision that is probably not going to be disturbed should it get challenged in court.
this money would be due, it'll eventually end up at Franklin TDC?
no, it goes to the school.
Okay.
All of this, any penalty money
Penalties
has to
by-
go to the school by
Constitution
statute.
goes to
Yeah.
the school board.
Okay.
So,
We do keep an administrative fee, which we have the right to do so
Right.
by
For handling.
statute, for
And
handling
that
it.
is, I'm just out of
8%.
curiosity,
We
8%,
just
same
apply
as we
the
charge the.
same, yes,
Okay.
the same 8%.
Good.
so.
Okay.
Well, we're being educated here on these things I didn't know.
Yeah.
How many penalties, and you're responsible for administering this penalty phase of this program?
Right, my department collects the occupancy tax each month, and then we send out penalty letters if people are late, yes.
How many ballpark penalties per year?
I've got
Oh.
dollars.
No?
No, you mean how
Just-
many people?
Yeah, cases.
I don't know.
So you're the only person that actually polices or enforces.
It's not, yeah. It's my
May
department,
not be the
right.
correct grammar.
Right.
But the occupancy tax
yeah, by the local bill, she is the one that is responsible. Her office is the office that's responsible for doing that.
and I've always
It's not the
said
tax collector.
yeah, there's no enforcement to this.
15, 16, 17, 18.
I mean,
Well, actually, there is. I mean, should there be a need to do enforcement, she would turn it over to the county attorney.
oh yeah, but it's kind of a self-policing occupancy tax program. In other words, there's no administrator or anybody out looking for people who do not pay.
There is not.
Right.
No, and there's no telling
It's
how
a-
many people that do
it's an
rentals
honor
that-
system.
It's
It's
an
an
honor
honor,
system, yeah.
Just like Department of
And
Revenue.
so here
it's kind of
you've
an
got
honor
Unless
someone-
and
system.
until
It's like paying
somebody
your taxes.
reports
Until somebody
Somebody
catches them.
reports it,
Yeah,
then yeah,
that's
we're
right.
gonna reach out to them and
That's right.
send them a letter and say, hey, we see that you're, renting a
But
cabin.
but for example, Paul, there's no one there's like, literally like, how many VRBOs in Macon County? 2,000 more? 2,600? There's nobody that patrols those to see if they're being rented or not, or if they're paying or not.
The what? Airbnb?
Vacation rental by owners where people rent their house.
Oh,
Or Airbnb, it's similar,
so
very similar.
Airbnb does not pay, I mean, they're not required.
They do, they have.
They do.
They want to submit it in a lump sum, but they will not give us the ownership information of the people who they are collecting it for. So now we have held well in excess of $100,000 in checks from Airbnb to Macon County that we have not cashed because they are not in compliance with the way we do business in terms of tax collection. In other words, how can we say that John Doe has not paid their taxes if he says, hey, I'll give mine to Airbnb. They wrote y'all a check. But now Airbnb won't give us that information if they have collected from him.
So what do you do with those funds? Not getting off on the side note here.
They're sitting there.
Just sitting there?
We've had some dialogue with Airbnb, hoping to resolve that issue. We had communication with them 2 or 3 months back, and
I've
we're
reached
still-
out.
We're off
still
the,
waiting
we're
to
off
hear
the
back
track
from them.
here. Ms. Moore said that she would be willing to pay the 5% interest,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to a minute ago. the
but I
amount of
simply
that.
cannot, she had on the $10 a day where the
Yeah,
problem is, so.
that's why I was trying to break
How
it
much of
down.
that?
Run back through that.
Yeah.
please, ma'am.
Yeah.
So the $10 per day penalty is $4,340, and then the interest is $818.43. So you combine those two together, and that was the $5,158.43.
Thank you. Chester,
Yes, sir.
could, you mentioned good cause shown. Can you give me a definition of good cause shown?
Yeah, we don't have any guidance by the case law of North Carolina in this particular setting of this local bill. However, we do have a lot of guidance by our appellate court decisions of when a judge does make a finding based on good cause shown. And in a nutshell, what it amounts to, it's a determination that rests in the sound discretion of a fact finder, in that case a judge, in your case this board, and the facts and circumstances of a particular case shall govern, and the case law basically says it'll not be disturbed unless there's been a clear abuse of discretion. So what I'm saying to you is to some degree, you've got to look at the facts and circumstances of this case as presented by Ms. Moore in the home store, and satisfy in your mind, one way or the other, has good cause to do something in the way of either compromise or excuse. Does it exist based on those facts? And that's for your determination within your discretion.
Ms. Moore, has anything changed in your, this is December the 5th, it's been a month or so ago, so has anything changed since you wrote the letter?
I did pay $2,200 in excess in fines, and I do want to make it clear that I have never tried not to pay the tax. It's just I couldn't do it in a timely fashion. But I've been paying the tax for 10 years. I paid in excess of $72,000 in taxes.
But has anything changed in your personal situation from when you wrote the letter a month ago?
Worse.
I'm sorry.
It's gotten worse,
Gotten worse since you wrote the letter a month ago?
as expected.
But you're still in business? You're
Oh,
still,
yes.
you're still doing the business?
I hide in my office from my home.
And once this is resolved tonight, then you're back on track.
I'm on track now. It was terrifying.
So was she $7,000 in arrears and paid $2,000, Lord?
No, the 2,000 was for other months that were delinquent,
Oh, okay.
that she paid the
I got you.
penalties, yes.
Are you feel comfortable about going forward?
Oh, yes. I have to. I'm self-employed. That's the only income I have. I have to move forward. It's just that as a single business owner, I found the penalties are heavy. I don't mind the 5%, that's fine. It's the $10 per day per filing.
You understand that does come from the North Carolina legislature, not from this board?
I do, and I congratulate you on the good job you do, and thank you for doing it. I couldn't do it.
How do you keep out of this mess again?
Oh, I'm back on track. I can't hire anybody. There's nobody that I can hire to help me. I work until 10, 11 at night.
Yeah, she has paid October and November on time, and of course, December's not due until the 20th of this month, so.
Have we ever done this before? I don't never remember seeing anything like this before this board.
This is the first time we've come to y'all for a
But
waiver.
you're gonna have another one next month.
Next month, yes. But this year to date, we've collected $5,524 in penalties. And then last fiscal year, we collected about half of that, about $2,500 last
This is the
fiscal year.
largest amount. I mean, this is
Yeah.
a large amount of money.
It
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
this-
And that's why it's risen to the level of,
Oh.
you know, asking for forgiveness or compromise of some, you know, of the penalties, so.
And I think Ms. Moore is proposing not an entire forgiveness, but instead a compromise whereby she would pay the 5% penalty, but request that the $10 per day penalty be excused.
That's correct.
Help me my memory, back in the 90s, we did have, I'm saying we, the county did have a person employed to be the enforcer.
Jay Nicholson was the first
Gary.
one.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And that didn't last long. It's not a pretty hard to
Right.
try to do that. Then we've never had anyone after that long.
Can I interject a thought? My business, I have always been at a 10% disadvantage with the rest of the county, and I've volunteered in the past to show the county all the people who have never paid state or occupancy tax, and I come out of the gate with every quote at a 10% disadvantage because I do pay the tax.
I agree. So, or what you're saying then is that you can show us people that are
Yes,
collecting that tax
and not paying.
and not paying it in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And that does put you, because you are paying it in. I see what you're
Yes.
saying. Yeah.
And there's no real
That
doubt
doesn't
about
surprise
that.
me at all. No, not at all.
That's no surprise.
Not at all.
I think the county should welcome that information.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I've volunteered the information before in writing to the tax office. I know how to catch them.
I can tell you that it's a constant. Every TDC meeting I've been in attendance of, it's a constant conversation. Constant.
Look at this 5% and give us some feedback on that and see what. if
It's $818.43, the 5% is. That would leave a balance of $4,340. Is that correct, Lori?
That is correct.
And that'd be forgiveness.
Well, that's what Ms. Moore's asking for is that's the big penalty. That's the $10 a day. She's willing to pay the 5% interest, but the $10 a day is where she's in the rears, but she's caught up now.
Yes.
But this is what she got behind when, if you read the letter, when all this, when a lot of these tragedies were taking place in her personal life. That's what got you behind, it looks to me like, right, Ms. Moore? I mean, it looks to me like Ms. Moore, you tried to do the right thing all along, and it was a series of events in a very short period of time that affected you personally and financially big time.
Personally, mostly. Financially, I do not mind paying the taxes, and I am up to date with all the taxes. I'm not asking for tax forgiveness, and I'm willing to pay the 5%. I'm just asking for the fine forgiveness.
The penalty.
Yeah.
And the fine is determined by law
by our legislation.
By the local bill
The
that
local bill.
authorized the collection of the occupancy tax.
Then, but the county commissioners have an option to circumvent that by law.
The specific language appears in Senate Bill 948 from 1985, Chapter 969, Senate Bill 948, under Section 1, Paragraph D. The Board of Commissioners may, for good cause shown, compromise or forgive the penalties imposed by this subsection.
Mr. Chairman, with the history of Miss Moore and you know, she's had a history of paying what she owed, and if you read the letter, there's no reason to dispute what's in her letter. So I'll make a motion, we accept the 5% interest and waive the $10 a day penalty as presented.
For good cause shown as presented.
With good cause shown as presented.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Shields. Any further questions or comments? I would like, if you'd be happy to provide that information to the county.
I will
we'd be
gladly
happy,
do so. It will help me and you.
That's correct.
Thank you, Chester.
We ain't
We
voted
haven't
yet.
voted yet.
You
so-
better wait.
Well, it'll all be on a fair playing field.
Any further questions?
Sorry.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
They haven't voted yet, that's what they're doing. That's why Roger said that.
All right, item 11F, schedule the budget, not the bucket, but the budget kickoff meeting.
Bucket kick the bucket. Bucket
Bucket
kickoff.
kickoff.
Yes, sir. Budget kickoff meeting.
Bucket.
Bucket kickoff meeting, however you want to call it. Right now, you know, that's where we set our goals for the coming fiscal year, pass out the budget calendar. Last year, we conducted it on a weekday. We started at 12 and got out about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. We're proposing to do the same this year, and the date that we tentatively selected for your consideration is Thursday, February the 7th, 2019, and we will start that
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
February 7th, Thursday, February the 7th, 2019, start at 12 o'clock in the Commissioner's boardroom, and have those discussions.
Does that work with everyone? It's good for me.
I'll let you know at the next meeting.
Probably better decide now,
That'd be after the
because
fact.
that's good, the next meeting will be after.
Pretty good, Paul.
Be sharp.
I was looking to see whether we needed to recess.
That's on a
You are
Friday.
correct.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, February 7th.
How long do you think it'll take? 2 hours, you said?
Yeah, no more than 3 hours.
Okay.
We'll move in here.
We'll just do it here in the boardroom.
Yeah.
What time are we starting?
12 o'clock.
Noon?
We'll be discussing goals.
Goals for the coming budget year
Okay.
that the board has.
Okay.
And then do our mid-year review, and, you know, we update you on the financials.
Think we can have the schools, think we have the schools 6 months to see where they're at on their budget? It's always good to, I mean, it doesn't.
Kinda see where they
I think
are.
we'll try to have a liaison committee between now and then. I don't know if we can work it in or not.
Facility or less?
Liaison.
Okay.
But we'll try to have that too.
Yeah, we'll certainly invite them to that meeting.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll try to get it set up.
I'm just going to throw out just a few quick thoughts, just so you gentlemen will be prepared. I'm personally just right off the bat not expecting any major capital projects to be thrown at Derek until we get through with the CIP or get that information back. But I do I do expect some very hearty discussion about, but just because we're in a revaluation year, about the tax rate and the revenue generated, so as well as our previous year's expenses. So Derek, I know you're going to have to be on your ball game, you and Lori both that day, on because I'm sure there's going to be some questions arising. I was just thumbing through what we've been discussing tonight, this audit report. There's really a lot of good information in there that I think we can pull from for questions. I encourage us to ask them and be ready. I just think it looks good for this board when we can hopefully unite whenever we're through with this budget process. And I think it's looks good on both Lori as the county and our county manager. Hopefully we can come to terms, an agreement and a consensus on this board to reach a consensus to agree on the budget at some point. I hope we're able to do that, and I hope that you gentlemen are ready to work towards that. But like I say, I'm expecting the most hearty discussion to happen on, especially after we heard what the fund balance was this year. So, but anyway, just looking forward to that. I don't want to incur any discussion on this tonight. I just want y'all to be ready, and I'm sure that'll be a major topic. But again, any different thoughts on that, Derek, or anything that you need us prepared for you?
If you have any, if you think of any questions and want to email them ahead of time, give us some time. If it's something we need to look into, that'll be good.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Okay. All right, moving right along. Liaisons. I did not make any changes this year to our liaison committees. I just figured I'd throw it out there real quick. We still can, if there's any problems or if any of y'all want to discuss or make any changes. I just thought I'd bring it up real quick, and if everybody's fine and happy with where we are, we'll keep on trucking. And I'm going to probably go ahead. I'll tell you right now that if I'm chairman next year, whoever's chairman, I'm going to make a suggestion that we change things up for next year, just because, gosh, how long have you been with the sheriff?
12 years.
And I would love to learn. I would love to be your liaison and work with you. Education, I think it's a good time. I was clueless with the Board of Health, and now I feel like I have an outstanding understanding of the Board of Health, the roles and duties, and it might be good for Commissioner Shields to be a part of that and just move around the county and put a different set of eyes, a different set of perspective, some thoughts into the different departments and boards and committees that we're responsible for. So I think next year, if I'm chairman or whoever, I'm going to make that suggestion that we do a complete change of house on what we're working on. Anyway, but for this year, we'll just leave it as is unless somebody needs or wants to change. So.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right, the consent agenda, we'll get a motion to approve unless there's somebody who would like something removed to discuss individually. Lori, you make a motion?
Yeah, I know, right? Paul, make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Higdon.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. All right, appointments, Community Advisory Committee for Long-Term Care. There's a good one that I'm a little clueless on. Can somebody bring me up to speed on that and what they do and who's on it?
The Long-Term Care Committee is, they meet once a quarter, and the Long-Term Care Committee is, they certainly, either through the Southwestern Commission or whoever can, they get complaints that might be filed or some situations with our adult daycare center that might be going on. Like right now, we're short on help. The ratio is 1 to 8 in our adult daycare center, and as of today, we're short on that. We're short on people. We're taking applications actively and vigorously and trying to find some folks. We had some unexpected departures from that department. So there's some folks that come every day that can no longer be there today because we don't have the folks to take care of them. You got to stay within that ratio. You really get you can really get some problems. So that's just one example, the adult daycare committee. And if there's anything coming down the pike, they meet once a quarter. They can be very active, and sometimes there's not a whole lot going on, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it looks like we have 7 members that need to be reappointed. Helen Burnett, Dorothy Crawford, Pam Goldsmith, June Hawkins, Lisa Henry, and George Taylor. Can we get a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion that those folks keep Dorothy on there as long as we can.
We got a motion by Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, then we have another one for the Board of Health, and this individual will be filling the, Mike, I presume, will be filling the general public. Okay. I'm not familiar with Mr. Dodge, Ross Dodge.
I thought I knew everybody in mental health does, but I still don't know.
96 White Oak Circle. I'm excited that we have somebody that's interested in serving. We've had 2 or 3 seats open for quite some time now. So, we'll get a motion to approve Mr. Dodge. Got a motion by Commissioner Bill.
Yes, sir.
A second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that concludes our normal agenda. I do think that there is a closed session. Mr. Attorney, is that correct?
No need for closed
No
session.
need for a closed session?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to go into closed session, Mr. Chairman.
For reasoning of...
Attorney-client privilege.
Yes, sir.
Must have something to ask me.
Okay. Do we expect any action when we come out of closed session?
Yes.
We do expect action. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Hang in there.
Get by the hour, do you?
Do you? Okay.
So we are going to be, sorry for making y'all wait, but we are going to be recessing until February 7th at noon, right here by West Main Street. Can I get a motion to approve that recess?
Motion recess.
Motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields, all in favor? Aye. Everybody else?
My sound never did come back.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Mr. Chief.